Hi, welcome to Psychic Tapestry. I'm Ken Kessler and she's Toni DeMaio. Hi, Toni.
Hi, Ken. Hi, everybody.
And here we are, usually Tuesday nights, but scheduling has been
Mm.
a challenge. This was supposed to be kind of a Halloween-esque um, episode, but here we are on November 6th. If you're looking to connect with us, you can uh, catch us on Facebook or Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. Facebook.com/psychic tapestry, at psychic tapestry on X. And you can also go to our website, psychictapestry.com, and connect that way. And if you are listening to this after November 6th, we'd be happy to have you join us for a live recording of these episodes. Just click on the calendar tab at psychictapestry.com so you'll see when the next one's coming up, if I have remembered to update it, of course. And we try to do these every other Tuesday. Scheduling has been difficult,
Hmm.
and because of my online Christmas music station that I run, this is a really busy time of year for me. So make sure you check our social media or that calendar page on our website because we may there may be a little irregularity in our episodes. So, I mean, there's irregularity anyway, but I mean in when they show up.
Tell them
So,
the name of your station.
oh,
The
it's
sound.
it's for those who are looking for some Christmas music or will be looking for some later. It's soundsofchristmas.com. It's free to listen to. There's an app in the Google Play Store under the same name. You'll see our tree there. And what we're talking about tonight is not my Christmas music station, but
No.
is the other side. Toni brought this up as something to talk about, and we were hoping to do this last week, just a couple
Mhm.
days before Halloween, but here we are on November 6th. So,
That's
do you remember, was there anything in particular that sort of brought this to your attention, or was it just this time of year?
it was the time of year, and also the fact that I know that in the course of my work as a psychic medium, I get asked a lot about the other side and about loved ones who have been departed, passed over, and people wonder what they do up there and if they can communicate with us and all those great things. And I happen to have knowledge of it. I've had the unique experience of being brought to the other side 6 times in my life. First time as a child, and then once in my 20s, and on into my old age. And it's an amazing experience, and I'd like to share it with people, and it does help them to understand how it all works.
And I would just add, because I have a few experiences that I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
share as well. And I would just add that, like so many of the things we talk about in Psychic Tapestry, um, your experiences could be different.
Oh,
And
yes.
and that's okay. This is not a one size fits all kind of thing. So, but this should give you maybe answer some questions, maybe give you sort of an idea. So, Toni, what do you remember about the first your first experience?
Okay, well, we could do that, or I could also kind
Oh,
of prepare people for how it works up there.
okay. Why don't you do that
Okay,
first?
I want to try to start that way. First, Earth School. This is Earth School. Earth is a school, and we come here and we reincarnate on Earth over and over in order to work out our karma and to learn our lessons. And those lessons may not be known to us consciously as human beings on Earth, but our soul knows what it needs to experience and work out. So it's interesting. We have to have faith that things are unfolding as they should. Now, the Bible describes heaven as being God's dwelling place, a parallel realm where everything operates according to God's will. And heaven is a place of peace, love, community, and worship. where God is surrounded by a heavenly court and other heavenly beings. And there are 7 levels. That's what some religions think there are 7, some 3. And it depends. It's different, as Ken said, for everyone. And we do choose our beliefs, I believe, by what resonates and feels right for us. It doesn't matter really how many levels. The ones that I have been over there to see are very Earth-like, actually. Another good point is we will recognize each other in heaven. People ask that a lot. You will find your loved ones. You'll know them. It'll just happen very organically. When you pass, there is a carrying spirit. It could be your spirit guide or a departed loved one may come for you. I know that my grandmother is coming for me, and probably my daughter too. I'm sure she'll come along because she has passed since in 2011. And basically, people, who have gone over there when they've had that out of body experience or a near death experience, if it wasn't their time to die, they've been sent back to their body. So it's very important to know that no one dies before their time. I mean, it's a predetermined thing, your expiration date. And I sure don't want to know mine, and I don't think anybody wants to know theirs.
I I had a relative who I don't know if they really believed, excuse me, I don't know if they really believed in any of this before this something happened, but they were in the hospital on a gurney, and then they were above themselves looking down at their body on the gurney, and as they rose up, they were met by several ancestors who said, "You have to go back. It's not your time."
Yep,
And poof, back in their body. And this was something they shared with me probably 10 years after it happened, but that seems to be an almost common sort of thing. A lot of people have had that experience.
exactly. And also, I've heard from my departed loved ones that not only do you see your loved ones when you cross over, but you see all the animals that you've always loved. They're all waiting for you right there. And that's a beautiful thing to think about. What a great perk. I love that. Now, if you want me to tell my first experience going over there, I will. I can get into that.
I do, but I'm gonna butt in because of
Okay.
the animal thing. Um,
Okay.
I have had on more than one occasion a pet that has come to me and led me to this beautiful field,
Oh,
and all of my pets were there. All of my previous pets since I was a kid. All of
that's
them came to
wonderful.
see me. It was very emotional, and I never doubted for a second
Hmm.
that this was real. I had never experienced anything like that or heard anything about it, but it was so peaceful and it was so healing to see them and know they're okay, whatever their ailments were when they were here, when they were my pet in their later years, those were gone. They were happy. They were active. They were excited to see me, but they had their own things to do. It was, it was just, it was magical. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there. It had that feeling of belonging. And I just thought, I didn't think about my wife or my kids or anything else. I just thought, this feels so good.
Yes.
I never felt as I've never felt so much that I belonged somewhere as I did just there among a lot of dogs, a couple cats that weren't really mine, but they came by to say hello. Um,
Aw,
it was just, it was an amazing experience that I didn't want to end. And
beautiful.
I know I've since then I've heard of others who have talked about something similar. And one sort of misconception, at least at this part of the other side, is that it's not like a chunk of real estate like we have here. So wherever your pets are when you go to see them could be a completely different surrounding,
Hmm.
completely different nature, if it's nature at all, and that's okay. I don't pretend to understand exactly how that all works or how it fits in, except that we're all energy.
Hmm.
So that goes into wherever the pets are. And it was just one of the most amazing experiences of my life, really.
Oh, I think that's fabulous. I never saw all my pets all in one place, but I was given a visit with my bear dog, which was amazing. I mean, just I'll never forget it. Freaked me out because it was a lucid dream. I had felt like a train tracks were going past my ears. It felt like, a train was going past each one of my ears. So my guides were raising my vibration so I could be in a different dimension, I assume. And I thought it might be having a stroke. This was in 2007, but I thought I better lie down. I didn't really feel dizzy, but I felt just disoriented. So I laid down and I closed my eyes. And then I heard my dog bark. And I sat up and opened my eyes. And my mother, who had been dead for quite a while, I mean, 10, 15 years at that point, was smiling at me sitting on the rocker in the bedroom. So, I was thinking, I'm in the same place, but I'm not really. I knew I wasn't because, I mean, she was solid and I was solid. And I mean, I felt so, it was so weird. Anyway, and then the dog came bounding in and jumped on me. I will never forget it. It was so beautiful. And I just hugged him and he licked me all over. And I said, "Thank you so much for bringing the dog." And then I said something crazy, but I said, "I would have come to get him if you called me." I don't know where that came from, but I remember saying that. And my mother looked at me funny, like, "What?" And then I realized, oh, that's right. She's actually dead, and so is the dog. This is some strange dimension. But it was beautiful. It was a very beautiful experience. And then I laid back down and he kind of snuggled up to me. And when I woke up, everybody was gone. It was just me. But it was not a dream because I was fully awake and lucid. It's hard to explain to anybody what a fully lucid dream is. You are just as if you're talking and sitting like this. It's not like a dream. It just isn't. There's a different quality to a dream. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have talked about my dog Benji on this podcast before.
Oh,
Um, love is not a strong enough word of how I felt about him, but um, he has come to see me several times. One of the first times I was walking in this little downtown area, and it was on a Sunday, so all of the shops were closed. And as I was walking by these windows, I noticed his reflection. He was walking with me. And I stopped and I turned and looked and he wasn't there. And then he wasn't in the window anymore either. But it was unmistakable. I
yeah.
have felt him hop up on the bed
Hmm.
a couple times. Um, the night before I was supposed to uh, meet my and I'm my current dog. Uh,
Hmm.
he was being fostered in a home on the other side of the state. and we were going sort of to meet about halfway to see him. And they were calling him Rowdy. They didn't know his name, but they were calling him that because that was his behavior.
Yeah.
And I knew that was something I was going to change if this was going to be my dog. But the night before I met him, Benji came to me. I felt
Oh,
him on the bed. And I mean, it's not like a cartoon where he talked, but I understood.
right.
And he told me that my new dog wanted to be called Rascal.
Oh, I like that.
And I didn't know what to do with that. And I wasn't sure if I was daydreaming or what was going on. But we went to meet him and the people that were fostering him. And they they gave me his leash and let me walk him a little to see if he would walk with me. And we were walking and he was ahead of me. I don't know if he knew that I was the one that had his leash, but once we were away from the other people, I called Rascal and he stopped and whipped his head around and looked at me. And I just knew. And he
Yeah.
has he has come to that name since, ever since that day. And it was just amazing. I mean, Benji didn't come to me and say to me in words,
Mhm.
like some kind of Mr. Ed, oh, done, he wants, but it was just, I could just feel him in my head and understand what he was saying. And the pictures that he gave me were um, of Rascal when he was out on his own wandering around the little town he lived in, and he would see lots of different people and they would give him food and stuff, and everybody called him a different name.
Hmm.
But the guy that he really liked called him Rascal.
Oh,
Except that I think it was actually Roscoe, because
oh,
names are hard,
yes.
but they sound very similar, and he has not complained. In fact, he just moved and he's laying down right next to me now. But I'm not going
That's
to switch. After I've had him for about 3.5 years, I'm not going to change what I'm calling him at this point because he seems to like that. So that's fine. And I only
done.
share that because love is so strong. And when you really love your pets and then you lose them, you don't really lose them, but when they transition, when
Hmm.
you still have that connection. And I'm sure that there are people who are going to be listening to this episode who may not have had an experience where their dog told them what the name of the next dog was or something like that. But you may have felt like something was on the bed or something or on the couch next to you where they used to be. I know that my wife had an experience where she was sitting on the couch and something sort of swatted at her ponytail from the back. And it's what
Oh,
our old cat used to do all the time. And he was no longer with us. But she
right.
was sitting there and there was a little swat. And it was just a little, hi, I'm here.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. Cats do that a lot. They like to pop back. I've had people at my classes see my black cat, Crow, and they will say, "Where'd that black cat go that was in here a little while ago?" And I go, "I don't have a black cat anymore." "Oh, yes, you do." And then I say, "Oh, that's Crow. He shows up and says hi to people and then disappears." So they do. They do come and visit. And it's a beautiful gift. It
It
really
is.
is. It really is. Such a nice thing to talk about tonight, too. So, do you want me to tell you about my first experience going to the other side?
Yes.
Okay. I was 7 and I'd been through the Presbyterian what do you call it, Sunday school. So I had some idea about heaven and what it was all about. And I was kind of interested in learning more about Jesus because at that time, this was back in the 50s, there had been a rumor going around or some kind of a silly thing. It's ridiculous that Jesus had blue eyes and blonde hair. Did you ever hear about that? That people thought that for briefly in the set in the 50s?
But there are some people who think that now.
Okay, all right. Well, he obviously didn't, and I didn't really think he did either. But anyway, so I'm in my bed and I'm not thinking about anything. I'm trying to go to sleep. And I look at the wall and there's a shadow there. There's a man standing over me in the bed. Now, normally, a normal person would be scared, right? I don't
Mhm.
know why I wasn't. I'm not a normal person. And I had encountered spirits since I was 2.5 years old. They would come and try to talk to me and get me to help them, which I couldn't do because I was too little. But I didn't feel afraid at all, and it didn't feel like a haunting. So I just turned and looked up, and there was this very handsome, big, muscular man in a white robe, and he had blonde hair and blue eyes. And I said, "Are you Jesus?" And he burst out laughing. And he just thought that was the funniest thing he ever heard. I don't know why. And he said, "No, I'm not Jesus. I'm Michael, and I'm your friend." And he said, "I've come to take you somewhere." And he put his hand out. He said, "You can trust me. Take my hand." And I just knew that I could. And I took his hand. And the minute that I took his hand, I just kind of was lifted out of the bed. He put one arm around my waist and held my other hand in his hand. And we went through, and he said, don't be afraid, close your eyes, which I did. And we went out the window, through the window. I can't tell you how that works, but that's what happened. And I was fully awake. I hadn't even been to sleep yet. And then suddenly we're up in the air and we're getting higher and higher in the air toward the black sky. And then we're in outer space. And then we burst through the black and there was blue, this bright blue sky like I've never seen without a cloud in it. And then as I looked ahead, and then he pointed with both of our hands, this is holding my hand, and said, "There, we're going there." And it was like there was this just patch of a meadow just hanging in space in this blue sky. And there was a beautiful tree in the center of this meadow. And it was all in pink blossoms, every shade you could think of pink. That and now as I'm older and I've seen it, it was the tree of life. And the grass was so green. And we came down on this in this field, and there were hills around us, and children from all over the world were rolling down the hills and laughing and running and playing all around this tree. And somehow Archangel Michael, that's who I believe he was, that's who the Michael was, had us all hold hands around the tree. Then he came and whispered in everyone's ear. He told us that he had brought us here because we were all very old souls. And I'd never heard that before because I was only 7. But I will never forget what he said. When I woke up, I wrote everything down. And I also drew a picture of what had happened. And I still have that in my closet, that picture. It's not very good art. I was only 7, but still, it made the biggest impression on me. And when it came my turn, well, he said he had brought us there because we were all trying to get off the planet. We were we weren't staying put. And I had been very sick a couple of times. I had German measles and chickenpox, and I literally kept trying to die. Every time I had an opportunity to get out of my body, I would. And I'd float up to the ceiling, and my guides would come and talk me into getting back into my body. This happened repeatedly as a child, so I knew that that was true. So we're all standing there holding hands. And when he got to me, he whispered, "You are going to help to unite the world under one philosophy of love. It will be in place of organized religion. It will be a philosophy of love." And I looked at him and I said, "How am I going to do that?" I mean, nobody else complained but me. I have to be honest. I was the only one. And he said, "Well, you won't do it alone. You'll be with a group of people, but that is your goal. And you'll also contribute through your communication." And I go, "Oh, okay." And then he said, and you'll be writing. I always knew I was going to write books. That when I was born, I knew I was going to write books. So he said, you'll do it through your writing and through your work with others. And so I said, okay. So I kept most of my life, I kept thinking, how am I going to do this? And then when I was an older lady and moved to Houston and found unity, there's a whole group of people like that, and they're all, instead of organized religion, it's really a philosophy of love, and they're showing and they're actually living the example of the way Jesus treated others. So, I found my people, and we're all working on it in various ways. So that was my first experience,
Wow.
and it was pretty dramatic. And of course, I told my family, and I, of course, have a bad rap in the family, or I did until they all went to heaven. They're all over there laughing at me now. But I was the over dramatic one, which is fine with me. And that's my story. And then I actually went back a second time in the 1970s. And at that time, I was in my 20s, I think, at the time. And my Graham, who was still alive, this one is different because her spirit, I know it was her higher self, came and took me out of my bed, and she was still alive, but she was in spirit form. And she told me, you're very worried about me dying. And I was. I mean, I couldn't stand the idea because Graham was my mentor. She was also a psychic, and she had been my first and only mentor. And she said, and I was just obsessed with the idea that if Graham left, I didn't know what I'd do. So she was saying, I want to show you where I'm going to be. And I said, okay. And we went, and her level of heaven is the highest one I've ever been to. Everything was absolutely beautiful. There were babbling brooks and with these curved bridges, very ornate over them, and the water was turquoise. All the trees had flowers. There were flowers everywhere. The odor of these beautiful blossoms was just amazing. It's like the most beautiful perfume you could imagine. And as we walked around, we walked together, and she goes, there's the Hall of Records, and the Akashic Records. And it was a big white building structure, and the windows were archways and the doors were archways, and all these people dressed in different different eras of clothing, from different countries. They were just from all different periods, and they're all floating around. Nobody's walking, everyone's floating because they were all spirits. And so we were floating too, and we floated into the Hall of Records. And I saw people, and Graham would point to rooms, and I'd look inside. People were watching their soul review, and I didn't know what that was at the time. And Graham said they're watching their soul review, and she explained it to me. And you're made to feel the emotions that others felt every time you hurt someone on earth. So it can take a long time to get through that soul review. I've been told, or I've heard that it can take, a great deal of time. So you don't do it all in one sitting. I think you come back, and then you go to spirit school, you learn some more stuff, and then you come back. So that's pretty much what happens on the other side. You're still learning, and you're of course having beautiful reunions with all your loved ones and your animals. So that's basically it. So Graham showed me where she was, and I'll never forget how beautiful it was, and brought me back again to my room. And I asked her about it, and I said, did you have the same dream I had? She didn't know about it, but I knew it was her higher self, but she didn't argue with it. She said, that sounds right to me, everything that you experienced. So I never forgot that one either. I did a painting of that as an adult. It was just so beautiful. But that was the second one. So I'll be quiet for a while. See, do you have another one to tell us?
I have a couple. Um,
Good.
I when I started to learn how to meditate,
Yeah.
um, I was part of a meditation circle, and I had never tried to meditate before. And I found it pretty easy when it wasn't when it was just music or sound effects, like the ocean or rain or something like that. When it's guided meditations, I have a lot of trouble with. Um, I remember one in particular where they're leading you around this house to the back of it, and okay, and I'm following, and you're on the patio, you're looking through the sliding glass door inside, and there was a pause. So I reached over and opened the sliding glass door and stepped inside. And then
Oh,
they said, but you don't go in the house yet. And I thought,
oh,
okay, well, I've ruined it because I'm in. So I've always had trouble with that, but I was
right.
I was fortunate in that when there's music or something that I like, that that I can fairly easily pop into wherever I'm going to meditate. Um, I created a space that is a luxury box in Madison Square Garden, or what I think it would be like. Because I've never actually been inside Madison Square Garden, and I'm assuming they have luxury boxes, but I don't know. But it's usually for a concert, and usually in my meditation, in my luxury box, I have singers and musicians and ancestors and all kinds of
Very
like that.
cool.
Um, so popping into that was very easy. I have I had never tried to pop into anywhere else before. However, when my father passed away, almost 5 years ago now, I I didn't even intentionally do this, but I was thinking about him a lot and missing him. And I popped into a driveway of this house that was in, I don't know, not quite in the woods, but near the woods. And there were other houses, but not close by. It was like it was maybe on a lake. I felt like it was on a lake, even though I didn't see it. And there were a lot of trees. And just after I popped in there, he came walking up with a dog. It was like an Irish setter. And he was surprised that I was there. And he, you know, happily greeted me and told me he loved me and everything. But he had some company coming over and he couldn't talk to me right now.
Oh,
And I was really surprised by all of it. The dog kept changing because it was an Irish setter and then it was a golden retriever and then it was something else. I don't know. But I don't know what that was about. But it just struck me that this is I guess this is his house, or this is what he wants to be his house if there is that kind of thing. And he was I have no idea who he was having over. But it didn't feel like rejection. It felt to me like Dad's not only okay, he's doing okay. He's having fun.
that's so
Um,
cool.
I thought about him again like that one other time, and when I popped in, I was in the dugout of a baseball stadium,
Oh,
and the
wow.
stadium was full, and he was there. He had been the catcher, and he was taking off his stuff so he could go bat. And he was again surprised that I was there, but he thought it was kind of neat, and he introduced me to whoever else was in there, the other people on his team. And then I heard the announcer say, now batting number whatever, and my dad's name. And I just remember thinking that was really cool
That is so
because
cool.
he loved baseball and
And he plays in heaven. I
and
love
and he was playing, and I knew that I was sort of welcome, but also sort of didn't really belong there. So I popped out. And I
Yeah.
haven't tried to do that again. He's come to see me many times, and I feel like maybe that's how that's supposed to work, rather than me going unannounced in to try and track him down, because I don't need to. But I just thought it was so cool
Mhm.
that on the one hand, he has this house not quite in the woods, but near the woods or whatever. It's off the beaten path kind of place. And that he was playing on some heavenly baseball team that had packed
Love
the
that.
stands, and I hope he got a hit.
I'm
Um,
sure he did.
but I just thought that that was really neat, and I know that when we think about the other side, because of movies and all, a lot of what we think about is spooky stuff. But I
Mhm.
just thought that this was so neat. He was, when he was in the baseball stadium, he was much younger than I ever knew him, or he
Mhm.
looked, he looked, I don't know, 20-ish, maybe a little bit older. I don't know.
28 is usually the age that the people choose to appear as.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I didn't
Right.
ask, and I didn't
Yeah.
know him when he was that young.
Yeah.
Um, but I just thought it was really neat that
That is so
that's
new.
that's what he's doing. I don't know what else he's doing. My mom will ask me every once in a while if I've talked to dad and how he's doing and what he's doing, and
I love that she
they're all,
accepts that about you too. That's beautiful.
but the our family and friends on the other side are fine.
Yeah.
They don't have whatever ailments or problems or any of that stuff that they had here on Earth. I don't know exactly what their daily schedule is, and I'm pretty sure that it's not the same for everybody, and their days are not like our days, and but they're fine. I don't know, when somebody asks how he's doing, is he okay?
He's doing
You know,
great.
yeah, he's great. He's better. He feels better than he ever did.
That's right.
Um, but
That's very cool.
when I was talking about being in that field with all of my pets, um, and there was that sense of I want to stay here forever.
Yeah.
But when I popped in front of what I'm assuming was my dad's house or in the baseball stadium, there was instead a feeling of that this isn't right. I'm not really supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not
I
breaking a
understand what you're
big
saying.
rule. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to get anybody else in trouble, but this isn't for me.
Mhm. You
And
knew you weren't supposed to be there yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad
No.
feeling. It wasn't like I had done something wrong or, had peeked behind the curtain or something. It just this just wasn't for me. I wasn't supposed to be there at my dad's game. I wasn't supposed to be there for whatever dinner party or whatever he was having. Um, I don't know, and I feel like a lot of that was just kind of like it was none of my business.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Well, I've got a dad story too. Now, my dad died when I was 23, so I was very young, and we were very close. And I grieved for him so hard that I could barely speak, make sentences, live my life, take care of my children, get out of bed, whatever. I went down to like 90 pounds. I mean, it was serious. I was serious in terrible grief, terrible. So he was trying to materialize in my house in broad daylight a lot during the week leading up to this visit. And I guess he didn't know how to do it yet. He'd only been dead a couple of months. But I remember this ectoplasm. It was white, this white stuff just hanging in the corner of the living room, and me walking around it and going, Dad, is that you? His stuff is just hanging there, and then it would fade away because couldn't fully materialize. So I was in bed, and I, I believe I was awake. That's how I remember it. It's a long time ago. But he appeared, and he looked younger, as you say, and so handsome and gorgeous, and just my cute little dad. He looked like Perry Como. That'll give you a visual. Like when Perry Como was on TV in the 50s, he was a dead ringer for my dad. And, we're Italian. So, but anyway, so dad said, I've come to get you because you are pulling me to earth, he said. You are grieving so hard, Toni. He said, you have to understand that I'm okay and that it's all right for you to live your life. I couldn't eat because my dad couldn't eat. I mean, I was losing my mind. So he said, come with me. And I took his hand. And suddenly it was different from with Archangel Michael. We were on the other side, and we were coming down into this valley that was so beautiful, with just ringed by mountains all around. And there was an amazing, gorgeous red barn, beautifully painted, like in the middle of this valley with trees all around it. And he said, that's where I live now. And he was telling me, all about how it worked on the other side. He goes, you get to imagine how you want to live and where you want to live and what you want to do, and then you get to do it. That's what he told me, and I will never forget it. So he showed me through this red barn that was all converted into this gorgeous home that he was living in. And he was a photographer, and he had all his art, he was still doing photography. It was all over the walls, and he had his drum set. He'd been a professional drummer, and he was playing music and doing all the things he didn't allow himself to do when he stopped being a professional musician. And I was glad to see that he was back at it. And then, several different things happened, but the most important thing was that he took my hands, and it was toward the end, because he started to almost melt. I felt like he was melting. And he said, I don't have much time left with you, but I have to tell you, remember when I thought there was no God? Because when he was a young Catholic boy, Italian American family, he had questioned things in the Bible at catechism and at church. And in those days, he was born in 1917, they took him outside and beat him up, and the priests really beat him up bad for asking questions. So he had decided that was enough religion for him, and that he was going to turn his back on it. I never really thought my father didn't believe in God, but I guess he didn't, or he was struggling with it. So he said, remember when I told you I didn't think there was any God? I'm wrong, he said. And he was so excited about this. I said, really? And he said, yes. He said, God is not a man, though. And everybody of course, thinks of him as a man, right?
Yeah.
Some type of a being that we can recognize. But he said it's a huge white light, so bright that you can't look at it. God is so bright that you can't look at him. And the whole idea is for us souls, he said, we're all souls, to try to learn as much as we can at Earth School, and to evolve and to grow so that we can join with the God light. And that's interesting, isn't it? But that's what he told me. And he goes, God is a big force for goodness and love. He said, God is love. And as he started to kind of melt away, he was like stepping back, and I couldn't, and I was, and I said, bye, Dad. And he said, I have to go now. And I said, bye, Dad, thank you for coming to get me. And it really worked, and then I was back in my bed, and I thought, wow, I was cured basically of the deep grief. I never had any more horrible grief where I couldn't stop crying, or I couldn't live, or I couldn't, function. It really cured me. And I thought that was a great gift. But I've never forget what he said about God. And that was before anybody had those theories about what God was, because I have read it from other spiritual people and people who have been over to the other side, and all. I've read about it since, but that was the first experience, was my dad telling me on the other side. And I just thought that was so profound.
It's
So,
amazing.
yeah, that was a good one.
We talk about um, Earth School and Spirit School and all the things that
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to learn and evolve. And I don't want it to sound like going to the other side is a drag and that you have to work and go to school. And
Oh, no, you get to make it up and have fun. That's what
yeah,
my dad was saying.
yeah. I mean, my dad's playing baseball
Playing
and having
baseball.
having friends over, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what else he's doing, and it's really none of my business, whatever he's doing.
Mhm.
He comes to see me and we talk sometimes, and I'm very fortunate that I have those times. But when you were talking about grief, it's a lot of people don't seem to think that psychic mediums feel that because we can talk to dead people almost anytime we want.
It does help. It does.
And that
Truth
is
be
an
told.
amazing that is an
Hmm.
amazing and wonderful gift. That's true, but it's still not the same.
No.
I would love to be able to give my dad a call anytime I want,
Yep.
or text him, or get a hug, or go and split a pizza or something, or watch the football games. Um, and I could do some of those things sort of with him now, but it's not the same. And I do miss him being here. I
Oh,
do
yeah.
miss that.
Sure.
Even though I know that he's fine, that he's better than probably he feels better probably than any day that I knew him while he was here.
Yeah.
I know his knees don't hurt because he was the catcher. I mean, um, but
That's a great story. I really like that one. I like
but
that.
I only shared that not because I'm so cool that I had this great experience, but just to sort of illustrate that it's not all the same for everyone. And if you have an
No,
experience and it doesn't fit what you've heard, what you've read, anything else, that doesn't take away from your experience.
for sure.
So,
Yeah. I've got one more that I'll share tonight. I think
okay.
that'll probably be enough. My daughter passed in 2011 unexpectedly, but of a heart condition, which I knew that she had. She had a massive heart attack in her sleep. She had had a stent put in. People in my family, my dad died of a heart attack, of a cerebral hemorrhage following a heart attack. My mom, I mean, everybody in the family dies of heart disease. And Samantha was a smoker, which, didn't help. And that's why she died at 39, because you can't smoke in my family because of the heart issue. And anyway, so it took about 6 months for her to figure out how to come in and get me, or have me come over there. And so one night I I go to sleep, and suddenly I'm on the other side, and there's Samantha, and we're in this facility, and she has a jumpsuit on. It was like a white jumpsuit. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she started laughing when she saw me. She just couldn't even believe it. And she hugged me and she goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I wanted to see you. And I guess today's the day. I asked for a dream visit. I guess this is a dream." And she started to laugh. She goes, "It's not a dream." And I said, "I didn't think so because I'm awake." It was just so weird. And I was just there. It was like I got zapped over there. It was so weird. But anyway, she said, she was telling me that, oh, I'm so fine now. Everything's great. And she looked so young and beautiful. She was a model, very beautiful girl, exceptionally so. But anyway, she said, "I've got a job here, a very important job, and I really love it." And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm helping lost souls to transition into their eternal life here on the other side." And I said, "Well, that's cool." And she said, "Well, there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to do that I never really got to do." She said, so I understand how they feel. She said, but next time when I come back, she goes, I'm going to do a lot better. And I thought she did really well, but she said she knew, she was really training for her reincarnation, which was going to happen. And I said, well, you're not going to come back until, I get over here, are you? She goes, no, no, no. We all kind of come back together. She goes, we're a soul family. We'll all come back together. But she said, I can show you what I do. And I said, I would love to see that. I'm so proud of you. So I said, are you like a spirit guide or in training or something? And she goes, it's kind of like that. But she opened the door to this room, and it was a hospital room, and there was a bed there. And this beam of light shot into the room from the ceiling, and the light hit the bed, and then this being just materialized. It was a very tall, very awkward looking man. He looked like Ichabod Crane to me, actually. And he had shaggy hair. He looked like he was homeless. And he was screaming and yelling and just terrified. It was frightening. It was like being trapped in a really bad movie, like a horror film. And I thought, oh my goodness, what was going to happen next? And I'm watching this. So Samantha came running into the room, and she stood there bathed in this light. This light was coming out of her. It was so beautiful and surrounded him. She put her hands out, and from her hands came this light, and it surrounded him completely in the light. And she said, you're going to be just fine. My name is Samantha, and I'm here to help you. You're in the right place. And then he said, why am I not dead? So I questioned maybe he had killed himself, and he might have. And she goes, there is no death. There is no death. And he started to scream and cry. And then she said, but it will be all right. You're here to heal. And she said, you're going to be just fine, and everything will be all right, and you'll understand more as time goes on. But trust me, it's time for you to go to sleep. So she put her arms around him, and he immediately went into a deep sleep. So she laid him down and covered him up, and the light remained around him. And she came out to talk to me into the hallway. And I said, that was incredible. What important work you're doing. I was like so amazed. And so she was hugging me, and she was laughing at me, and she thought it was funny. And then I said, well, am I dead? That's the first thing I asked her. I said, am I dead? Is that why I'm here? And she laughed. She goes, no, you're not dead. And you have to go back. She said, you can't stay very long. She said, I don't really know how you got here, but I know that. And so I said, well, how am I going to get back? And she said, well, you'll just wake up in your bed. I do know that. And then she said, you're going to have to go now, Mom. And I said, why? And she started to melt. So I guess they can't hold that image for too long. And she stepped back from me, and I said, oh, I wish you could come with me. And she said, well, I can't. And I said, oh, I know. And she put her hands out, and from every one of her chakras, including her palm chakras and her eyes and her mouth and her throat, every single chakra, the light just was bursting out of her. And her physical body was fading away, and like her head fell back. And then there was no more body, just light. And I heard her voice say, because I am energy, I am the light. And I woke up in my bed, and I will never forget it. That was profound.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we ended up writing the book, Friends in High Places, together. She came to tell me in a separate encounter, a dream encounter. It felt more like a dream than a lucid dream. But she said, I'm going to be coming every day, and we're going to write for a couple of hours in the morning. I'm going to help you to understand certain things that happened to me in my lifetime. And, they were kind of tragic things. And she said, and I am helping people who are having these same experiences in life, as well as welcoming the lost souls who come in. So she has quite a lot of work to do. So that's what that book is about. And it's actually a very funny book and entertaining, and kind of, people tend to love that book. I'm pretty proud of it. So that's Friends in High Places. And Samantha and I wrote it together. And
You
we
know,
changed all the names. We always change all the names.
I know that time is a concept that it is
Yeah.
very difficult for us to get our brains around because it's different on the other side than it is here.
Yep.
And I remember I was very surprised to connect to somebody who has been gone since the 50s, the 1950s, and that they hadn't come back yet. And their response was, there's so much to learn. There's
Yeah.
so much to see and so much to do. And it just, and I have maybe a little bit more of a concept now, but not a lot. I don't know. I mean, it's not the same for everybody, but but that really surprised me because I have talked to others who ancestors who knew other ancestors of mine and that I hadn't been able to reach, and they said, well, they're going around again.
Ah,
So
there you go.
it's not the same. It's just not the same for everybody. We're all learning different things. We're all doing different things on this side and that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, my dad's been gone since 71, and I haven't seen him in quite a while, about 20 years now. So I'm pretty sure he's back on Earth. I have that sense
Mhm.
because I can still see Graham and Samantha and everybody else, but not my dad. So I'm pretty sure he's back here somewhere. He might even be one of my grandkids because we do tend to stay in the same soul family. That's another theory that we all incarnate together. Your whole soul family, all these soulmates that you have.
I have a little story about that, except that it's about dogs.
Ah, I like
But
that.
when Benji had gotten old and was
Yeah,
starting to suffer from doggy dementia, and everybody was telling me it was time to put him down, and was getting so mad at everybody for saying that
yeah,
because
yeah.
I just felt like this is when he needs me the most. I don't want
That,
to get rid of him because he's an inconvenience. And I was so mad. I didn't understand how bad doggy dementia is for the dog. What a horror it is. I didn't get that. But he would frequently show up in my meditations and
oh,
everybody loved him and he would trot around the luxury box I was talking about before and he would
yeah.
trot around and see everybody. Um, but there was
Oh,
one time where I was having trouble finding him and then when I did, he turned to look at me and at least his face, it could have been his whole body, changed into a dog from when I was a little kid. And I
oh,
had and I had this dog for a brief period of time when he was a puppy, and I loved him so much. And I was maybe
oh.
4 or 5, and then my parents gave the puppy to
Mm,
my aunt and uncle. And I hardly ever got to see him again, but when I would go see them, I was very happy to see him. But he was the same.
the same soul.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was just shocking to me. I wasn't expecting that at all.
that does
And,
happen a lot, though, I've been told.
but
Yes.
that was, but it was really sweet.
Oh,
Um, and I don't think that I'm looking behind me. Rascal's softly snoring behind me, but I
oh,
don't think that he is um, the same soul as any of my previous dogs, and that's okay. I
yes.
um I didn't go hunting for him
Hmm.
because of who he might have been in a previous
Hmm.
dog life. I I chose him because I thought he needed me and I needed him. Um,
Right.
and because Benji told me.
Yeah.
But um, but seeing his face shift into that other dog, and so, with no words, I instantly understood that he used to be my puppy, and it was a shame that neither time I was able to have him for his whole life. But, you know, maybe another time I'll get
Yes.
him as a puppy. Maybe. Um, I don't usually, when I adopt dogs, I usually get older dogs because nobody
Yeah,
wants them
that's right.
and they need somebody. So I have them for 3, 4, maybe 5 years, and it's tough. But but
It's God's
they,
work. You should
huh?
be proud. You're wonderful to do that.
Oh, well, thank you. I
Yes.
I just the first time I ever, this has nothing to do with what we were talking about, but it's my little pitch for rescue dogs. First time I ever went to a shelter, I had never been to one, so I didn't know what to expect. And when I found Benji, they had all kinds of information about him. And it was because the couple that owned him previously, he was an inside dog. Then they got together and he became an outside dog and he kept climbing over the fence to try and get back in. And they dumped him in
Oh,
the shelter. I just didn't think that people could be like that.
oh.
And there were all of these dogs that were older, and I had no idea that that's the kind of thing that happens. I mean, sometimes people get old and they go into assisted living places where they can't have a dog anymore.
Hmm.
And I understand that it's tough, um, but that's not always the case. And there was a when I was there, there was a youngish couple that had a couple kids that were looking around and they were looking for puppies. So they were walking right past all of these older dogs. And I
Hmm.
just thought, you know what? I bet everybody does that.
I bet.
So that's why I decided that the older dogs are the ones who need me the
And they
most.
do.
So, so that's the end of my pitch.
I love
Uh,
that. My son does that too. He takes old dogs.
yeah.
Yep. I think that's beautiful.
Well, is
Beautiful.
there anything else that you want to?
No, I could go on and for another hour, but I won't.
Well,
That's
it's a
enough for today. Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, it's a big topic and
It is.
it's tough other than sharing our experiences. It's tough to talk about because it's not the same for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the places you popped into versus the places that I popped into were
We're
very
different, very
different.
different. Yeah. Yeah,
And
because everybody's at a different level, I think, of heaven
yeah,
or a different part of it. And if it's true what my dad said, you get to make up what you want to do, and it appears to be true. Your dad's playing the baseball that he always
yeah,
wanted to play. My dad's back in the greatest playing the drums, probably in the heavenly band, in the jazz band up there. And my brother, I know he's playing lead guitar up there. I already know that. That's another one. But yes. And I just, hopefully everybody that's listening knows that there is no death, that it's just like stepping into a different room when you pass. There's nothing to be afraid of. And that the soul is energy, that we are energy. We can't be destroyed. So it makes sense that we live this magical life where we can make things up the way we want them to be and live in a beautiful place.
that's a
I
very good place to leave it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. And Tony, thank you for hanging out on a Wednesday
I
night.
loved it. I love every minute of
I
it.
loved it too. We are planning to be back
Yes,
2 weeks from yesterday, which would
yes.
be the 19th, I think.
Okay.
I'll have to, but but check the calendar on our website and keep an eye on our social media. And I will post the actual date and
That'll be good.
maybe a tease about what we're talking about. And then if you want to join us for the live taping, that would be great. If it's easier for you just to grab the podcast everywhere that carries fine podcasts, you'll find us. Um, that's great too.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening and connecting with us. And we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Yes.
So take care of yourselves and remind those close to you that you love them. And we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.